Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video technical analysis. We're taking a look at Ripple's XRP today. Just going to give you a view on the macro, the daily and the weekly, where my thoughts are with the price action and where I think things are heading. As we get into the video, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, why not consider subscribing as well? And you'll be kept up to date with all the content that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Let's take a look at what's going on here then with XRP. So we can see that we are still in our downward trend. Okay, this hasn't changed. You can see here, though, we've had a couple of test points on this trend line, starting off right up here on the 11th of March 2024. We then have a secondary test right here on the 9th of April, and it does look like we're heading back up for a third test of this downward trend line. We are lower than the 200 exponential moving average. That's the white line that's going through the chart here. We also see that the trend line is in line with the 50 simple moving average, the yellow line that's coming through the chart here. And we can see most recently the rejection from our 50 EMA and the 200 EMA on the 22nd of April, right? So what does this mean? Well, it means that we are seeing another push to the upside here, where we are looking at this, unfortunately, as being another rejection point for XRP. I don't think it has the momentum to push through these resistances. The 50 EMA, the blue line coming through here, is currently sat at 55.14 cent. The 200 EMA, which is sat at 56.71 cent, and the 50 simple moving average, the SMA, coming in at 56.57 cent. So we know that all three of those are kind of coinciding together with our downward trend line right here, showing us that this is an area that is going to be a bit of a struggle. It's going to be an area that we're going to find a lot of resistance. Now, as I mentioned, momentum indicator, the stochastic RSI, is up in the overbought area here for XRP as well. It's an indication that unfortunately things are not in the best positions, and we're likely to see rejection from the EMAs, the SMAs, the downward trend line. In an overbought area here, momentum is likely to start shifting back down towards the oversold area. This is the daily time frame, so it can take a little bit of a time for that to play out. And again, this is pretty much aligned to kind of what I've been talking about for quite some time. Ultimately, we still have a few more weeks of volatility to be expected to the downside before we start to see that next big surge to the upside. Okay, now there's a lot of things going on in the news for XRP as well. That could be obviously fueling a little bit of the fear around the market, specifically with the reply brief from the SEC, which is due today, right? So we do know that there's a lot of stuff that's going to be in the headlines. It's going to be causing some investors to potentially worry. You can also see here the RSI, the relative strength index, is coming up to the 50 level where we got rejected before. So we can see that the resistances are real. We also note that from a divergence point of view, is the relative strength index doing something different to price? There are no divergences here. There's no indication to be bullish or bearish from the divergence indicator. If we take a look at the MACD, which if I do this, I think I have to come down here. That's it. We can see that we have got some positivity, but we are approaching the area where we might start to see a reversal in here. So we did see the cross on the 22nd of April here, and we did see the histogram start to turn positive. But I'm not too confident on this one. I think we're likely to see a bit of a reversal. So MACD is a laggy indicator. It only shows you what's already happened. It doesn't show you what is about to happen. I prefer to look at the RSI, the relative strength index, and the stochastic relative strength index. It gives you, at least in my opinion, a better kind of view on what is going on. So let's go ahead and come back into our price chart here, right? So we know that from the kind of traditional ways of looking at the market, the EMAs, the SMAs, the relative strength index, the MACD, the trend lines, they're all not looking the best. I mean, the MACD is probably the only thing that's reasonably positive right now. If we go ahead and throw on smart money concepts, we do have ourselves the change of characterization from bullish state of play to bearish state of play. This happened on the 13th of April. So we do know that we are in a bearish structure here. We have those EMAs, the trend line, all coming in line with that resistance of the equilibrium as well from a smart money concepts point of view. So I expect a bit of a push upwards, but rejection, and finding this as a continuation of our move to the downside. side. We continue to see lower highs and lower lows on the daily time frame, and smart money concepts basically is aligned to that idea as well. Elliott wave theory shows us again a very similar pattern, WXYXZ, which is what we're hoping that this is going to be. We don't want this to be a diagonal. If it is a diagonal, we're going to see a really big wave 5 take us down very, very deep. If that is the case, then XRP is in a really bad position. It's not necessarily the complete end of the world, but it would be something that I would be really quite cautious on. It would be a 335 and would see a much deeper correction towards, this lower range down here of around 33 cents. So we want to avoid that where possible. So a WXYXZ finishing movement would be nice. We do have the overlapping structures from an Elliott wave point of view. This shows us that we're not in a trend, specifically with the wick lows over here crossing the wick low over wick high over this side. This overlap tells us that we are not in a trend. The only exception is an expanding diagonal pattern, which would have to see us move down towards 33 cent to kind of be in line with that idea. And what that would basically mean is it would look like there's a wave 1, a wave 2, big wave 3, up for 4, and the biggest wave must be the wave 5, and it must expand out like so. Okay, that's the only concerning area that I would have for XRP at the moment on the daily time frame. Okay, so we want to avoid that idea, but we do know, of course, that we are in the downward trend line. I'm going to leave that one there. Now, if we roll this up into the weekly time frame, you can see that this is kind of just a ranging market, really. If I go ahead and draw in here the area of interest, pull this across here, we can see that this is an area of support, right? This coming in at 41 to 42.53 cent, right? That's the area that you're finding the support range in. And then at the same time, you can see here as well, I'm going to go ahead and just going to be really broad. Actually, no, I'll draw it over this side because it will make a little bit more sense. Right in here, we have the area of resistance coming in at 66.13 to 75 cent. And so you basically are ranging between this low range of 41 cent and the high range of 75 cent, right? So although we can say we have got, technically speaking, lower highs and lower lows, it is actually just stuck between these two ranges. And I still expect us to come down, and maybe we'll come down a little bit deeper into that kind of range of the Z wave. But it still actually looks really strong to me. It doesn't look like it's an area of concern. I do think this is actually kind of coming up quite nicely. I think for the most part, XRP finds itself in a pretty reasonable position on the weekly time frame. But again, let's go ahead and check what's actually going on. Well, we have the 200 weekly exponential moving average. The white line coming through here is sat at 50.6 cent, and it is our current area of support. You can see time and time again on the weekly time frame that we haven't closed lower than our 200 weekly EMA. This shows us with great strength. It shows us that things are actually holding up. We might wick down, but our weekly closes are in pretty reasonable positions. The resistances at the moment, though, are on the 50 exponential and the 50 simple moving average on the weekly time frame. You can see here these coming in around 56.83 on the simple moving average and 55.32 on the exponential moving average, the 50s. And so with resistances being up here and support being down here, you are kind of wedged in here. We're either going to be looking for the breakout or the breakdown in price action for XRP on the weekly time frame. So we want to be aware that there's some interesting stuff unfolding here for XRP. Now, when we throw on smart money concepts, we're still in the bullish structures. None of that has changed. We can see that our fair value gap down here coming in at 45 to a low of 41 also happens to fall in line with our support range. And so if we were to move down, we could grab out that fair value gap and then start to rally back up again. I'm not terribly too concerned about that. Equilibrium is sat at around $1 to $1.16. So we do know that that's going to be an interesting point of reference later down in the line. Maybe we'll get some fantastic news around the SEC versus Ripple that can push price up towards that dollar level in equilibrium resistance. But for now, actually not too bad. We have equal highs. We have minor changes of characterization into current bearish patterns, as we were kind of indicating on the daily time frame. That's in here. But there's nothing major saying that we need to be majorly concerned over XRP's price action. It is basically just ranging between the two, and smart money concepts shows no real concerns for me at the moment. Our stochastic RSI is down here in the over sold area, just looking to rally back up again. But I expect us to actually be down here a bit longer. I don't think we're done with the smaller time frames, specifically the daily or the 8-hourly. I do see those actually coming down a bit further, and during that moment we'll see the weekly stochastic RSI hopefully stay in the lower ranges. That will give us more momentum to the upside at a later date. If we go ahead and take a look at the divergence indicator, again we're lower than the 50 level. We had a couple of hidden bullish divergences in the past, earlier in the year for example. Nothing major showing right now from the relative strength index. We do of course see that we have ourselves some momentum that is shifting still downwards on the weekly RSI. Specifically here we can see that we are setting lower highs on the RSI, but again I'm not terribly too concerned with that. We are still in a bearish play on the smaller time frames, and I expect the weekly to continue to kind of come down a bit before we start to rally on up. So all of that is actually looking pretty reasonable in my opinion. From a MACD point of view, you can see that it has turned to negative, and I still think we've still got some room here on the weekly time frame before this one plays out overall. So again, just keep a close eye on that. Weekly histogram's negative. We had the cross over here in April. So we are looking at the laggy kind of indicator showing us what's already happened, and it shows us that yeah, things are not looking up just yet on the weekly time frame for XRP. But for the most part, like I said, I'm not terribly too concerned. I think the weekly is in a reasonable position, looking between that kind of 41 closing above the 41 cent area and closing below the 75 cent area. Anything closing above 75 cent will be incredibly bullish. Anything closing lower than 41 cent on the weekly time frame will be bearish. Other than that though, I think we are still looking at the moves to the upside, where I'm looking and targeting out between $5.59 and $11.26 on the macro. Nothing has changed there. The only way that changes really is down lower than 28.72 cent, which isn't an impossibility. It's something to be very mindful of. But I think for the most part, the idea here would be that we're in a diagonal and we'll be basically looking for a big explosive move to the upside, probably around the idea that the SEC versus Ripple case has been settled and is put to bed. Once that happens, I expect us to see a very explosive growth to the upside, where hopefully, we smash past the $11.26 and we go up to, $110,000, whatever it may be, right? I'm not going to be opposed to those ideas. I think though, for the most part, we're probably going to be between that $5 and $11 ranges for XRP. So yeah, guys, that is going to wrap this video up today for XRP. So if you have found it useful, smash the like button. If you're new, subscribe, and why don't you check out this video right here where we go through what's going on with Solana.